I looked at the number on the screen, which was flashing from green to red. My score is 43 out of 100. This can't be right, I whispered, feeling the air leave my lungs. At the table, my boss, Lane, didn't look up at me. Her fingers tapped nervously on the tablet as the projector showed my gruesome results to the empty conference room. Productivity is below standard. Communication is ineffective. Teamwork is problematic. The words merged into one, and I tried to understand what I was seeing. I don't understand, I said. Last quarter, I had 87. Since then, I have managed 2 major projects. Both ended early. Lane cleared her throat. The numbers don't lie, Penny. The numbers don't lie. But someone definitely lied. I leaned forward and flipped through the detailed report. Numbers and estimates that contradicted everything I had achieved over the year. Projects I saved, ideas that saved companies thousands. Everything has disappeared, replaced by imaginary failures. This is someone else's report, I insisted. This must be a mistake. Lane finally looked at me. Her face turned pale. She glanced at the door, then back at the tablet. Something flashed on the screen that the projector did not show. Her eyes widened. She stood up abruptly and knocked over a glass of water. I didn't write it down. I need to check something. Wait here. Water spilled across the table and dripped on my portfolio. I didn't clean it up. My head was working, trying to find an explanation. System error. Confused with another employee. Some kind of cruel joke. When Lane returned 7 minutes later, she was shaking violently. Penny, she whispered, you need to leave the building immediately. She slid the printed document across the table, trying not to step on the puddle. Submit your resignation today. Don't put off. What are you talking about? My voice became louder. I will not leave because of some obvious mistake. It's not a mistake, she said, pulling the paper closer. Read this, but not here. Go home. You'll understand everything. I looked at the document. Headline: Strategic Personnel Reduction Plan. Penny Wesley. Lane grabbed my hand. Her nails dug into her skin. You're being watched. Go now. I never showed you this. The paper felt like it was burning in my hands as I walked to my desk, picked up my bag, and headed for the elevator. In the reflection of the elevator doors, I saw the head of the HR department at the end of the corridor, quietly talking on the phone. Hello to all my wonderful listeners. If you're feeling that knot in your stomach right now, wondering what's next, hit the like button and subscribe. Trust me, the story gets even more intense from here, and you won't want to miss any details of what happened when someone who thought they had all the power suddenly realized they'd made a terrible mistake. Leave a comment if you've ever experienced that lump in your chest when you realize someone has acted against you. Now let's get back to what happened after I left this building. My name is Penny Wesley. Until 3 weeks ago, I was a process improvement specialist at a manufacturing company that produces medical devices. I am 32 years old. I'm alone. I have a degree in industrial engineering and a reputation for being overly meticulous. Grandma called it picky, which sounded kinder than intrusive. But both words are true. I live alone in a one-room apartment with more plants than furniture and often work late. My colleagues joke that I was married to my job. This is probably why what happened can be called a very unpleasant divorce. The journey home that day remains in fragments in my memory. Red traffic lights through tears, white knuckles on the steering wheel, rustling on the edges of the road when I stopped because I couldn't breathe. It was only when I was sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of tea, cold and untouched, that I unfolded the document Lane had risked her job to give me. The strategic staff reduction plan sounded corporately dry, but in reality, it was much dirtier. The further I read the 5 pages, the more my hand shook. The document contained a step-by-step plan for 6 months. Destroy my confidence, ruin my reputation and career. Everything was written there. Take away my successful projects, set unrealistic deadlines, exclude me from meetings, and then punish me for my lack of information, invent problems with my work. On the last page, there was a schedule of when I would voluntarily leave and even a prepared text for my exit interview. It's my fault. I raised the issue of a new production process that prioritized speed over safety. I had data about the risks for both staff and patients. I suggested more expensive but reliable solutions. At the bottom of the document was the signature of Easton, the director of operations. The same one who praised my work 2 months ago. I reread it 3 times, hoping to find at least a hint that this is not serious. Then I threw up in the bathroom. I didn't sleep at night. I sat on the balcony, looked at the city lights, and tried to reconcile in my head the company I knew and the one that decided to destroy me. Dawn found me there in the blanket, with chaotic thoughts between shock, anger, and pain. By the morning, I decided there had to be an explanation. Maybe this is a draft. Maybe it's not about me at all. Tomorrow I'll go and demand answers. But in the morning, a letter arrived from the HR department. We confirm your verbal resignation, which you conveyed to Lane yesterday. Your contract ends immediately. I never applied. A few minutes later, a second letter arrived from Weston. He regretted my decision to leave, respected my choice, and reminded me of the confidentiality agreement I had signed. They made history. Paper trail. They erased the truth before I had a chance to tell it. I called Lane. Silence. I wrote what was happening. The answer came only after several hours. Sorry, I can't talk. They say you quit. Are you true? No. Anil Good, I sent it. There was no further answer. During the day, a courier brought a box with my things from my desk and an agreement. 2 weeks of payments in exchange for waiving any claims against the company. I put the box in the closet without even opening it. For 3 days, I hardly got up from the couch. All the meetings and conversations kept going over and over in my head. Maybe Weston's smile, when he praised my presentation, was too forced? Maybe my colleagues were avoiding me? At what point did I become a target instead of a valuable employee? On the 4th day, my neighbor Terry knocked on the door. She worked in the accounting department of the same company, but in a different building. I heard you quit. Everyone's talking about it, she said, sitting down on my unmade sofa. They say, you had some kind of breakdown at the interview. I showed her the document. Her face turned pale. Penny, she whispered, this isn't the first document like this I've seen. Terry sank deeper into the pillows. A few months ago, I was checking some strange expense reports. Trainings that never actually happened, consultants without job descriptions, special projects without results. I tracked the signatures. All of them came from managers through a separate account called Talent Management and Tidy VES. I pulled my knees up to my chest. And what does this have to do with me? About time, Terry replied. Each strange expense appeared a few days before some dismissal. I've had dry mouth 23 times in the last year. 23 people. These are the ones I was able to track down. There may be more of them. She hesitated. One of them was my friend Oleg from the product safety department. He raised questions about the testing of the new line of ventilators. And suddenly they started fining him for being late and for overdue assignments that he didn't even know about. I felt dizzy. And what happened to him? He left after the certification. He said he couldn't handle the pressure. Within a couple of weeks, he was already being treated for panic attacks. My tea on the table has long since gone cold. Outside the window, the rain began to pound in unison with the chill that ran down my skin. But why do they need all this? I asked. Why not just fire people? Wrongful termination lawsuits, bad reputation, Terry said quietly. But on paper, it turns out that problematic employees leave on their own. She grabbed the bag. I better not linger. I think I'm next on the list of asking too many accounting questions. After she left, I sat in the gathering darkness. This is not a mistake, not an accident. This is a system, strategy. 23 people before me. I opened my laptop and started searching online for former employees. I sent messages to one after another. I also recently left the company. Are you ready to share your experience? I wrote as a former employee. Most did not answer. Some wrote briefly. Did I sign the agreement, or have I already forgotten everything? But the 7 agreed to meet. We gathered in a small cafe 10 minutes from the office. I recognized some faces, others were unfamiliar. They worked in different departments, in different positions, but they all had similar stories. Everyone raised some issue about safety, ethics, finances, and immediately became a target. Blake, a former quality inspector, showed us his work reports. 4 years of excellent grades, then a sharp decline. After he asked about the new testing standards, they specifically scheduled meetings for me around the same time as my daughter's presentation, he said. They knew I couldn't come, and then they wrote that I wasn't a team player. Mina, the compliance specialist, nodded. They simply moved my deadlines without warning. Then they accused me of ruining everything, and someone tried to fight. I asked. There was silence at the table. I tried, said Damien, a former engineer. Filed a complaint with HR. 2 days later, my entire team received a letter that I had personal issues that were affecting my work. I threatened to sue. Rachel said quietly. The next day, my work computer was completely wiped. All files, all emails said system failure. Rain streamed down the cafe windows, blurring the view outside. Inside we sat, hunched over the cooling coffee, as if wounded by the same invisible hand. We need to go public, I finally said. All together with evidence. What evidence? Blake interrupted. My word against their words. I only have reports that they can declare to be true. And I need a recommendation for a new job. I have children and a mortgage, Mina added. One by one, they explained why they couldn't take the risk. I walked home alone in the rain, understanding why this system works so perfectly. She didn't just get rid of people. She isolated them, broke them, made them doubt and afraid to fight. Last night, I dreamed that I was in the conference room again. The water spilled across the table, rising higher and higher until I was drowning in it. Weston stood in the doorway and watched calmly. I woke up gasping for breath. This morning, I received a letter from an unfamiliar address. No subject, no greeting. Only the attachment and words may be useful. The file turned out to be an internal company chart that I had never seen before. Unlike the public version, here the red lines connected some of the executives to a separate structure called the Special Projects Department. Weston's name was at the top. A few minutes later, the second letter arrived. Northeast parking, level 3, for PM today. Is it worth going? It could be a trap, a stupid joke, or someone who genuinely wants to help. After everything that had happened, trusting seemed crazy. At 3:55 p.m., I parked on the third level. I didn't turn off the car. At 16:2, another car stopped nearby in 2 places. The window of the car next to me slowly rolled down. I recognized the face of Victor, the database administrator. In 3 years of work, we only spoke to him a couple of times. Get in the back seat, he said quietly. Pretend to look for something on the floor. I hesitated but obeyed. Through the gap between the front seats, I saw him approach my car, open the passenger door, and discreetly slip something under the seat. He didn't say a word and left. When I was sure that he had left, I took out the item. It was a flash drive with an insurance sticker on it. At home, I inserted it into my laptop. It contained hundreds of files, letters, meeting minutes, HR documents, everything related to the Strategic Staff Reduction Program. There were instructions from managers on how to identify difficult employees, ready-made scripts for conversations, templates for fictitious violations, and a whole list of people. Those who have already been fired, those who are currently in the process, and those who are still under observation. My name was there, as were the names of everyone I met at the cafe. And Victor's name was also marked as observation stage. He held me at the risk of his own job. I leafed through file after file, and with each line my anger grew. The program existed for almost 5 years. More than 60 employees were forced to leave. The company saved millions on severance pay, avoiding bad publicity and legal action. Everything is thought out to the point of cruelty. Simply effective and completely illegal. I didn't sleep all night, copying files, putting evidence into folders, taking notes. By the morning, I had a complete picture. Not only my story, but dozens of others, but I didn't have a plan for what to do next. Going to the media seemed logical, but the company's lawyers were too powerful. They'll crush me before the story gets out. To sue, perhaps, but these are years and the last savings, and neither one nor the other will return people's lives to them. Oleg was still struggling with panic attacks. Rachel lost her home because she couldn't find a job quickly. Something different was needed. Fast, strong, something that would really hit them. I hardly slept for the next week. I studied files, contacted former employees, and gathered a complete understanding of how the system works and who created it. The picture turned out to be even darker than I thought. The company had 2 faces. One public award for innovation, best place to work. The second is hidden. They systematically eliminated anyone who interfered with their profits or exposed their workarounds. And suddenly I found something that made me stop. In 3 weeks, The annual Industry Excellence Awards were scheduled to take place, a major summit attended by executives, investors, and press from across the medical industry. And Weston was appointed as the main speaker there. Its theme is creating culture, innovation, and integrity. Ironically, perhaps, I was seething with anger. When I looked at the summit program, everything clicked in my head. An idea appeared, dangerous, perhaps even destructive for me, but strong enough to change something. I needed help. I called the people I met at the cafe and a few other former employees. In the end, 15 people agreed to come to my house on Saturday afternoon. Some came with loved ones for support, others alone, still carrying the weight of what they had been through. While I want to propose is risky, I began standing in the small living room. If after hearing this you decide to leave, I will understand. I told them what I had found, what Victor had passed on to me, and what I thought we could do. As I spoke, expressions on their faces changed from tired indifference to interest, and then to something new. Hope. When I finished, there was silence. Then Blake stood up. I lost more than just my job, he said. I lost faith in myself. My daughter saw me cry for the first time. His voice wavered. I'm with you. One by one, others began to agree. Not all. Someone had too much at stake. I respected their choice and promised to keep their names secret. But 11 people remained. We sat down on my kitchen table and started planning. We spent the whole night sorting out the details, figuring out how to get around obstacles, and preparing backup steps. By dawn, we had a plan, one that could actually work, one that could reveal the truth without allowing the company to suppress us in court, one that could bring at least a little justice, not only to us, but also to everyone who would have suffered further if nothing had changed. Everything depended on the summit. This was the moment when the company would be most visible and vulnerable to public scrutiny. We had 17 days. On the third day of preparation, Victor wrote, "They're looking for files. They know that something is missing. On the 7th floor, the security system is being changed and new surveillance is being installed." On the 12th, Weston asks about former employees. Be careful. They felt something was coming, but they didn't know where it was coming from. This worried them, but also made them careless. The closer the summit got, the more often we met. Every day we refined our plan, supporting each other in times of doubt and fear. Some had never stood up to their superiors before. Others have tried and been broken. We all bore our scars, but together we began to heal. Fun gave way to purpose. Loneliness in solidarity. Yes, anxiety grew, but along with it, so did the determination to see the matter through to the end. The evening before the summit, we met for the last time. The room was buzzing with tense energy. What if it doesn't work out? Mina asked what everyone was thinking about. If we do everything and nothing changes. I looked at these people, allies, friends. Everyone had reasons to hide, but they chose to fight. Then at least we tried, I said. We didn't let them win with our silence. Rachel, who had been almost silent all this time, suddenly straightened her back. They took so much from me, she said. They won't take my voice away. We raised our glasses in silent agreement. As everyone started to leave, Blake pulled me aside. Are you sure about tomorrow? He asked. Let's start. There will be no turning back. I remembered my sleepless nights, panic attacks, the career I built for years, and then lost because of people for whom we were simply expendable. Sure, I replied. See you tomorrow. When everyone left, I was left alone in the apartment. In front of me lay the collected evidence and our plan. So much could go wrong. There was so much risk. The phone vibrated with a message from Victor. The security meeting just ended. They are adding security guards for tomorrow. Someone is nervous. And they're doing the right thing, I thought. I packed my bag for tomorrow. The hands were surprisingly calm. The summit started at 9 a.m. By midday, the company will no longer be the same. I just hope we all stayed on our feet. The summit was held at the Grand Central Hotel, a gleaming glass building in the city center. I arrived 2 hours before the start as planned. Work was in full swing in Holy. Employees set up chairs, tested microphones, and hung banners with the company logo and the summit slogan, "Innovation with Integrity." I almost laughed at the irony. I took a seat near the reception desk and watched the guests come in, executives in expensive suits, journalists with press badges, investors eager to hear about future profits. None of them knew what awaited the company. Blake showed up at 8:15. He nodded discreetly as he accepted his visitor's badge. Mina and Rachel arrived together at 8:30 a.m., businesslike, calm, and unremarkable. One by one, the rest of our group arrived, sitting down around the room as we had trained. No one gave any indication that they knew each other. At 8:45, the phone vibrated again. Victor Weston has arrived. He is accompanied by a PR director and 2 security guards. My heart started beating faster. Additional security was not part of our calculations. I looked around the hall and noticed 2 men with headphones at the main entrance. Will they recognize any of us from old photographs? Were they warned of a specific threat? I wrote in the general chat, "More security." We proceed with caution. By 9 a.m., the hall was almost full. I took a seat near the exit, as decided. The company's chief marketer announced the start of the program, welcoming guests and presenting the agenda. My palms were sweaty. I wiped their skirt. At 9:30 a.m., the first speaker, a renowned analyst, took the stage to discuss market trends. I hardly listened to the speech. All attention was on the hall, security, positions of our team. From across the room, Rachel met my gaze. The face is tense, anxious. For a second, I thought maybe I should cancel everything. Too many risks, too many serious consequences. But then I saw him. Weston sat in the front row, scrolling through his phone, completely calm. The same person who signed papers that destroyed other people's careers, lives, and health just for the sake of profit and the silence of the dissatisfied. My insides sank. Determination returned. We will continue. There was a scheduled coffee break at 10:15. People came out to have a drink, coffee, cakes, and exchange business cards. Our team has taken up positions. I stood at the entrance to the hall and kept an eye on the time. At 10:29 a.m., everything went wrong. Message from Blake. Security checks bags at the exit of the toilet. Found materials. I felt cold inside. Blake was supposed to bring some of the evidence in copies of documents for distribution. If they were taken away, I quickly calculated how much more I could do without them. A minute later, he came up to me, pale as chalk. "They took everything," he whispered. "They said it was a random check. They took the folder and wrote down my details." "Have you seen what's inside?" I asked. "I don't think so. They just said it for safety." It was very bad. If Blake gets linked to me or the others, the operation will be ruined before it even starts. I wrote Plan B in the chat. Plan B was more dangerous, less controllable, but possible. Instead of handing out papers during Weston's speech, we had to rely on digital methods and oral testimony. Less effective, but harder to drown out. When the guests returned to the hall, I noticed 2 security guards with walkie-talkies. They looked around the crowd and were clearly looking for someone, perhaps us. At 10:45, the HR director came on stage. I recognized her immediately. The same woman who looked at me that day when Lane told me to leave. Before we continue, she said politely, in a businesslike tone, a short security announcement. "We have been informed that unauthorized materials are being distributed at the summit. If anyone approaches you with documents that were not provided by the event administration, please notify security immediately." There was a murmur in the hall. The HR director smiled reassuringly. "Just a precaution. Now, please meet our Vice President of Operations. He will talk about our safety awards." The phone vibrated. Message from the team. "They know everything. We're leaving. We will be arrested." I took a deep breath and wrote calmly. "We are acting according to plan." They are nervous, which means we have strength. The hour dragged on painfully. Scene after scene of speeches about quality, safety, and caring for employees. It's all a lie, covered with beautiful words. With each slide, the anger inside me only grew. At 11:50, the moment was approaching. Weston was scheduled to deliver the main speech at noon. I counted the guards. Now there were 6 of them. I wrote a status to Victor. The answer came immediately. "Ready." At 11:55, the HR director came back on stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our Chief Operating Officer, Thomas Weston. With his speech, we create a culture of innovation and honesty." Applause. Weston stood up, buttoned his jacket, confident, calm. The company logo and the title of the presentation appeared on the screen behind him. and suddenly the picture changed. The screen flickered, and instead of slides, showed an internal message. A letter from Weston himself to the HR department. Subject: Strategic Program for Staff Reduction. The text was large and legible for everyone. The situation with Wesley is resolved. We are launching the exit plan as discussed, for management only. Weston froze halfway to the podium. A buzz rose in the hall. The screen changed again. Now the list of names. 63 employees. The reason is official and real. My name is highlighted. Officially voluntary withdrawal due to problems with the results. In fact, it raised the issue of risks to the production line and profits in 4 quarters. Victor did a perfect job. As an administrator, he had access to the system. He intercepted the broadcast and showed something that should never have come out. "Turn off the screen," Weston shouted, turning to the technicians. Immediately, but Victor blocked them. Then came new documents, templates for fake reports, instructions for managers, a system for monitoring inconvenient employees. Chaos broke out in the hall. The journalists raised their phones and filmed the screen. The leaders whispered and exchanged glances. The guards rushed to the technician, but it was too late. I stood up from my seat. "My name is Penny Wesley," I said, my voice echoing through the silent room. "This is my name on the screen. I was fired because I pointed out safety issues that could have reduced profits by only 3%. All eyes turned to me. I felt fear and suddenly calm. "I'm not alone," I continued. Others from our group also stood up in the hall. Blake Shin was punished for questioning short checks. Mina Jordan for reporting rule violations. Rachel Torres for documenting worker injuries due to accelerated production. One by one, we stated our names and guilt. 11 former employees in front of hundreds of executives and journalists. Weston's face changed from shock to anger. He pointed his finger at me. "Security, remove them immediately." But at that moment, the doors at the end of the hall opened. Lane walked in with 7 current employees. Among them, I recognized my former boss. She looked straight at me, then turned to the audience. "Everything they say is true," she said in a trembling but firm voice. I was forced to falsify Penny's work report. They said that otherwise I would lose my job. She picked up the folder. "I have evidence." The guards froze, looking at Weston. He turned pale, his eyes darting between the screen, where documents continued to flash between us and the journalists, who were feverishly taking notes. "This is absurd," he shouted into the microphone. "These are just disgruntled former employees. Everything was hacked, documents were forged." And then Rachel stepped forward. She took out her phone. "I recorded our meeting. The one where you said, 'Either I quit myself, or you will make it so that I will never be hired in the industry again. Do you want me to turn it on?'" And without waiting for an answer, she pressed start. Easton's clear voice rang out in the hall. "You have a simple choice, Rachel. Leave quietly, or we will destroy your reputation so that no one will hire you. We've already done this." There was a dead silence in the hall. Investors began to quietly get up and head for the exits. The company's shares have probably already fallen. The news spread. Weston was typing feverishly on his phone, clearly a lawyer. But it was too late. Everything was already recorded by journalists. The head of the HR department tried to intercept the microphone. "We take these allegations very seriously. We will conduct an investigation. You yourself are mentioned in 37 documents." Blake interrupted her sharply. "It was you who developed the system of psychological pressure. And then the hotel security appeared, no longer the company's private security." The manager approached the stage. "We were informed about a disturbance. These people are trespassers," Weston said quickly. "They need to be taken out." The manager looked around in confusion at the screen with evidence, at the journalists, at the former and current employees standing shoulder to shoulder. In fact, a voice came from the back of the hall. "I think we are now seeing evidence of corporate misconduct and systematic pressure on employees." A woman came forward and showed her business card. "Charlotte Reed, Department of Labor. I came here to hear about your exemplary working conditions." She smiled coldly. "I'm very interested in continuing this conversation." Revenge was not in public disgrace, although that was nice too. And it wasn't how Weston's carefully crafted image was crumbling before everyone's eyes, even though it seemed fair. The real revenge came after 3 weeks. The board of directors announced a complete change in leadership following an independent investigation. Weston and 5 other top managers were fired. The Strategic Staff Reduction Program made headlines. Class action lawsuits were filed on behalf of all affected employees. The company introduced a whistleblower protection program and created an independent ethics committee with real powers. Former employees were invited to return, promised to pay off the outstanding wages, and publicly apologized. I didn't come back, and most of us didn't either. But we have achieved more than just personal justice, but systemic changes that will protect others. 6 months later, I opened my own consulting firm. We were involved in fair practices in companies and protecting workers' rights. My first clients were former colleagues who had also gone through all this. The last time I saw Elaine was when she was promoted to director of the new Employee Protection Department. "We're building something better," she said. "Something real this time." I believed her. Sometimes the best revenge is not to destroy what hurt you, but to turn it into something that can't hurt anyone again. M.